Well, a big focus at the moment. The Israeli military announced its air force targeted a Hezbollah facility in southern Lebanon used for storing mid-range rockets. Now, this strike came after both sides accused each other of violating a ceasefire aimed at ending more than a year of fighting. Israel also reported firing on vehicles it deemed suspicious in the southern region, accusing them of breaching the truce with the Iran-backed Hezbollah, which had been in effect since Wednesday, as we had been reporting. But the exchange of accusations has highlighted the fragility of this ceasefire, which was brokered by the United States and France to end the conflict, fought in parallel with the Gaza war. The truce lasts for 60 days in the hopes of reaching a permanent cessation of hostilities. But despite the tensions, Hezbollah's backer Iran doesn't want the conflict to escalate anytime soon, is what analysts are arguing. In fact, Tehran has taken a more conciliatory tone in recent weeks, driven in part by the unpredictability associated with Donald Trump's return to power. Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking all the finer details. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, these accusations, are they being seen as a sign that this ceasefire is a respite and not a solution for peace in the Middle East?
As you rightly pointed out, all the stakeholders who brokered this ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah know that it was just a temporary truce. And both the parties are accusing each other of violating the ceasefire. And there is utter confusion for the citizens of Lebanon who were from the southern region, because the moment ceasefire was announced, lots of these southern residents started moving towards the south. But when they reached near their homes, near their residences in the southern territory of Lebanon, they found the Israeli army there who were announcing on loudspeakers for these residents not to return, saying that they still have time to vacate. And they have noticed or found the presence of Hezbollah fighters there. And they started firing or attacking in that region. And they also killed around 2 people there yesterday. Now, that the Lebanese prime minister had asked people to return, that the ceasefire has been achieved, it has been implemented, and people can return. And on the other side, the Israeli army announcing them not to return. So utter confusion for them. And both the parties, both Hezbollah and Israeli army, are accusing each other of violating the rules of the ceasefire. But this certainly shows that the ceasefire can't be can't stay for very long until the implementation is done in a very genuine way. And all these stakeholders like US, France, UNIFIL, and other Western alliance partners of Israel ensures that they deoccupy the territory. Because one term of this ceasefire is that Israel can remain in that territory for 60 days, or in other words, they have 60 days to deoccupy the land. And that is exactly what Israel is taking advantage of, is what the Hezbollah or the Lebanese government is accusing them of.
As always, Ghazali, thank you so much for taking us through the details. In other crucial news, the United Kingdom and Iraq have signed a landmark deal to strengthen border security. In fact, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper describes the deal as a landmark moment that will tackle small boat crossings at source and also help the pledge to smash the gangs. The Home Office said smuggling networks operating out of Iraq, including the Kurdistan region of Iraq and Europe, have been responsible for trafficking thousands of people across the globe, including across the Channel to the UK, which has been undermining border security and also putting lives at risk. But this move marks a shift in the UK government's approach to tackling irregular migration, is what the UK Home Department argues. And a quick update from the neighborhood now. Violent protests and clashes following the arrest of Chinmoy Das, a Hindu monk and leader of a minority rights group, have exposed the fragile law and order situation in Bangladesh. The unrest sparked by the arrest and resulting in the death of a lawyer at a Chittagong court was led by thousands from the Sanatani Hindus group. And their main demand is that the interim government, which is led by Muhammad Yunus, ensure the safety of the country's 20 million religious minorities. This includes Christians and Buddhists along with Hindus as well. They have faced attacks from majoritarian mobs, is what people argue, and over 2,000 instances of violence have been documented, with at least 9 minority members killed, often in protests targeting supporters of Sheikh Hasina's Awami League party, though there is a clear communal aspect as well. But Chinmoy Das, associated with the Bangladesh chapter of ISKCON, presented an 8-point list of demands, including swift trials for cases of minority persecution, the creation of a minority protection law, and a Ministry for Minority Affairs and 5-day public holidays for Durga Puja. Despite this, The government there has not responded, although Professor Yunus has met with minority representatives and visited the Dhakeshwari temple as well. For a quick update from Ground Zero, we have with us senior journalist from TRT, Mohammad Kamruzaman. Thanks so much for joining us live from Dhaka. Now, some analysts argue that it appears that the Bangladeshi authorities have been granted broad powers to suppress protests, even those that are peaceful and lawful. But take us through what's the current state of affairs across Bangladesh. Is it still very tense?
Actually, the situation is a little bit normal now. The tense is now prevailing regarding the brutal murder of the young lawyer. And you know that already more than 15 people have been arrested, verifying the video footage, and the lawyer who was murdered on broad daylight. So after examining the CCTV footage, police arrested those persons. So investigation is under process. And regarding the safety, security of the minority Hindu people, the government has already stated that they are serious regarding the safety security of all people. Actually, the controversy raises due to the protest of the supporters of Chinmoy, and for the last couple of days there are some video clips that were viral on social media where the supporters of Chinmoy Krishna Das Brahmachari and ISKCON seen they are consulting with their supporters, keeping some weapons just behind them. So among the people, there is confusion whether this organization is doing their activities only on religious basis, or they are doing politics here and supporting the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. That's why actually there are anger among the opponents of this Hindu leader. So based on this, there is tension now. So we are expecting that after investigation, everything will be clear, and ISKCON must clarify that this is merely a religious and spiritual organization, and they have no intention to interfere in internal politics of this country.
Also then, would you say with these latest developments, Bangladesh-India ties have plunged? What's the word on the ground?
Actually, I want to say very straightforwardly that India must recognize Bangladesh as a very friendly country, neighboring country, and Bangladesh is an independent country. So, you remember that Obaidul Qadir, the second man of the ousted Awami League government, in public meeting, in public address, said clearly that if Awami League falls, it means that at least 500,000 people will be brutally murdered. He said this because there were many incidents of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances. But after the fall of Sheikh Hasina on August 5, there is no that type of violence. Actually, there were many political violence, and some Hindu people were also the victims of that political violence.
Right.
But it should not be leveled as torturing on minority. But we are expecting that if law enforcers perform their duty properly, and the seriousness that expressed by the advisors and the other officials of the interim government goes on in a peaceful way, everything will be cool, and peaceful environment will be restored.
Well, thank you so much, Mohammad Kamruzaman, as always, for joining us with the latest from Dhaka. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates, and here's sincerely hoping peace is restored there. By the way, British Conservative MP Bob Blackman has strongly raised the issue of atrocities against Hindus and the arrest of ISKCON priest Chinmoy Krishna Das Brahmachari, and said it is unacceptable that religious minorities are persecuted in this way. In other crucial news, Australia has become the first country to ban social media for under 16s. Australia just voted into law a social media ban for children under the age of 16. Now, this legislation was approved by Australian lawmakers with the aim of protecting the mental health of children online, despite opposition from tech companies who claim that the rules are unworkable. This ban aims to address the impact of social media use on children's physical and mental health, affecting social media platforms including X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Reddit. But here's a caveat. YouTube is not included in this. This new law, set to take effect in 12 months, will give social media companies time to comply with the new requirements, including taking reasonable steps to prevent children under a certain age from creating accounts as well. Now, while children and their parents won't face penalties for breaking these rules, the responsibility will fall on the platform providers. While the law doesn't specify which platforms it targets, it's expected to apply to major sites like Facebook, as I mentioned, Instagram, Snapchat and TikTok, according to the Prime Minister as well. Educational sites like YouTube and messaging apps like WhatsApp will be exempt, but here's the fine print. The law does not detail how tech companies will enforce these age restrictions, but those that fail to comply could face fines up to 50 million AUD, that's around 32.4 million US dollars. It also doesn't require users to upload government IDs for age verification. And I must also inform you, and you must keep in mind, that a recent YouGov survey found that 77% of Australians actually support this new measure. And similar proposals to increase age limits on social media are also being considered in places like Norway and Florida. But for the latest and ground report from Australia, let's go across to Professor Amanda Third, who joins us at the moment. She's actually a research fellow and co-director at the Young and Resilient Research Centre. Thanks so much, Amanda, for making time for us on NDTV. Really appreciate your time. What are the initial reactions to this new law? We're actually hearing the critics are warning of unintended consequences, including potential harm to vulnerable young people who rely on social media for community and support. But is this being hailed as a landmark law?
So it is indeed being hailed by the government as a world-first piece of legislation, but I think it's really important that international audiences understand that this really is a piece of legislation that is motivated by local, domestic, political and economic interests, and arguably has not had children and young people at the heart of its design. It's been pushed through incredibly quickly without proper consultation, either with the large expert community here in Australia or with the children and young people who will be impacted by this new legislation. It is very much, I think, about getting parents on board and garnering votes for the upcoming federal election.
Would you then say that this is actually not going to help under 16s? Is it not going to help the cause of physical and mental sort of shielding the youth?
Yes, as the expert community has been saying very loudly from the outset, we believe that there are much better ways to ensure that we can protect children's and young people's mental health online, and to hold technology platforms to account for their responsibilities, not just to children and young people, but also to their families. I think, by evicting children from social media, we actually remove all impetus for holding technology companies to account for their responsibilities. We let them off the hook, essentially. We're much better pursuing much more fine-grained regulatory instruments like a statutory duty of care, which has also been proposed by the government, and a children's privacy code, another piece of legislation that's been endorsed by the government overnight. Unfortunately, though, the proposed ban, or the legislated ban, I should say, if it does come into effect in 12 months' time.
Right, we seem to have lost Professor Third there. But as Professor was arguing, this law that's being introduced in Australia within the next 12 months, it doesn't have children at the heart of its design, which is a concern that many critics have highlighted. But that was Professor Amanda Third on Australia's world first ban. With that, let's turn our attention to the neighbourhood and get you the latest from Pakistan. Police have levelled multiple charges against imprisoned former Premier Imran Khan, his wife and others for inciting people to violence following days of protests and clashes in which at least 6 people were killed and scores more were injured. Mr. Khan's wife, Bushra Bibi, led thousands of people from the country's northwest to march on the capital, Islamabad, to demand the release of Imran Khan, who has been behind bars since August 2023. As you know, Imran Khan already has more than 150 cases against him, but supporters say they are all politically motivated. Well, switching tracks, Iran has notified the UN nuclear watchdog that it intends to install over 6,000 additional uranium enriching centrifuges at its enrichment plants and activate more of those already in place, according to a confidential report from the International Atomic Energy Agency that's just released. Now, this IAEA report, Reuters is reporting, outlines Iran's response to a recent resolution that's been passed by the agency's 35-nation Board of Governors. And the resolution, which was backed by Britain, France, Germany, and the United States, has called for action against Iran. Well, news and updates continue right here in a moment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, has threatened to target Kyiv's decision-making centers with its new ballistic missile and also said that Russia would use all weapons at its disposal against Ukraine if Kyiv were to acquire nuclear arms. The Russian president has said that Russia struck Ukraine with 90 missiles and 100 drones overnight in response to Ukraine's attacks with the UK and US weapons last week. But Ukraine's president, meanwhile, has called the attack a vile escalation, adding that cluster munitions were used specifically against civilian infrastructure. In other news, Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Mohan Yadav is now on a visit to Germany after his touchdown in the United Kingdom. He was given a grand welcome in Munich, where he said he wants a new kind of partnership with Germany, a partnership that is not limited to just trade. Listen in.
Joining us today in Munich is the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh, Mohan Yadav, who is in Germany for 2 days. He's visiting the south of Germany. Welcome to Munich, sir. सर हमारी जानकारी के अनुसार आज आपने इन्वेस्ट मध्य प्रदेश इवेंट करा है. आप यहाँ पे बवेरियन स्टेट के मिनिस्टर्स, चेंबर ऑफ कॉमर्स, बिजनेसेस सबसे मिले हैं. क्या उम्मीद लग रही है, किस तरह का निवेश आप देखना चाहेंगे, कौन से सेक्टर्स हैं जहाँ पे आप निवेश देखना चाहेंगे मध्य प्रदेश के अंदर?
मैं सवे बवेरियन स्टेट के मिनिस्टर से मिला था और उनने भी इस बात के लिए प्रसन्नता जाहिर की कि अब हमारे लिए जर्मन की वर्तमान की स्थितियों में मध्य प्रदेश के साथ जुड़ने में, भारत के साथ जुड़ने में उनको और प्रगति दिखाई दे रही है. रूस यूक्रेन युद्ध के बाद से और कई कारण से टेक्नोलॉजी बदली है. व्हीकल में इंजन के बजाय एवी जो चलने वाले हैं, इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल के कारण से अब ये जो बदलाव आया है तो वो मध्य प्रदेश की और भारत की तरफ देख रहे हैं. और उनने ऐसे कई सेक्टर में, सर्विस सेक्टर की बात भी कही है कि आप सर्विस सेक्टर में भी हम हेल्प कर सकते हैं. हेल्थ है, एजुकेशन है, ऐसे बहुत सारे सेक्टर में. और हमने फिर अलग अलग तरह से ऐसे हर एक प्लेटफॉर्म का उपयोग किया है. जैसा आपने कहा, चैम्बर ऑफ कॉमर्स से लगा करके मैं कोई इंडस्ट्रियों के अंदर भी गया हूँ जहाँ मिल करके देख करके आया और कई नवाचार करने वाले मित्रों से मिला जिनके पास में टेक्निक तो है लेकिन उनको इन्वेस्टर भी चाहिए. तो हमने उनको इन्वेस्टर उपलब्ध कराने की बात कही है. हर तरह से मध्य प्रदेश के अंदर हर युवाओं को काम मिले, देश के अंदर का मान सम्मान बढ़े. यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री के नेतृत्व में मध्य प्रदेश देश के अंदर नंबर 1 की स्थिति में आए. हम लगातार प्रयास कर रहे हैं.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.